Expand your mind and enrich your world. It's time for another outstanding podcast from ICRT.
If you've taken Mandarin language courses in Taiwan anytime in the past 20 years or so, your homework probably sounded a little something like this.
昨天的报纸在哪里？
啊，我拿去丢了。这件事情你怎么说？昨天的报纸被他拿去丢了。
What you're hearing right now is the introduction to one of the video lessons used in practical audio-visual Chinese, a textbook published by the Mandarin Training Center at National Taiwan Normal University. Well, today on the show, we are marking the end of an era because that textbook is being updated, replaced, moved out of circulation. After 15 years using this set of textbooks, NTNU has developed a new series that updates both content and teaching style. And this is not just a change for students at NTNU. For many years, this textbook has been the standard for classrooms around Taiwan, including National Taiwan University, Furen University, Chengchi University. So with this change of textbooks, it could signal a change for Mandarin teaching across the island. I spoke recently with Howard Chen, who directs the Mandarin Training Center, to learn a little bit more about the changes being made and how the center came to become so influential in Taiwan. Howard, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure to come over here. Yeah.
So I just wanted to start by asking, so this is a new set of textbooks. You have worked on it for about 3 years, I understand, so a lot of work went into these. What are the main changes, the main updates that we can expect from these new textbooks?
Okay. We have the older version called Audio-Visual Chinese at MTC for like more than 15 years old. And many students enjoy using it. Okay. But it's very much like structural-based things, and it's a lot of a drill. And we want to follow the mainstream of language teaching. The two mainstreams of language teaching is communicative approach and test-based learning. And want to implement these two concepts into the new edition of the textbook.
So when you say communicative approach and task-based learning, what you're talking about is real-life situations and learning how to deal with those situations in the language you want to learn.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we want students actually be able to use this language right away. Don't just learn the vocabulary and grammar and do not know how to use in different situations.
And so that's the older method, is just getting a list of words, a list of grammar, and try to learn it that way.
Yeah, but the older version emphasize a bit on the communication, but we want to emphasize more in the new edition and put students in different kind of activity, allow them to do more practice in using the language.
And so this is kind of a long time coming, right? I mean, these textbooks, you've been using them for about 20 years. Yes. So this is a big change for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've been thinking about whether it's the right time for us to do it or not. But we've been thinking about the audio-video Chinese, the 视听华语 has been using for like more than 15 years. But it's time for us to make some change. And also because the other center also, they also asking us about this possibility about any new addition, any new ideas to be implemented in our new textbook.
Right, because there's a lot of language centers that are using your textbook.
Yes,
yeah,
yes. And they have received some minor complaint from students about these funny pictures. You're probably aware of the old pictures in the old textbook. Students complain about the older pictures. And also some topics are not so updated.
Right.
Yeah, so they want to replace with a newer topic. That's also another perspective that we heard from students.
Right, yeah. If you look at some of the teaching videos that you guys made, it's very clear that these people are from the 1990s.
Yes,
you can tell that the first second you look at it.
第一课，新室友。课文。
But I understand you made a couple of other changes. You're also trying to get more content online, and there's a couple of other changes as well, right?
Yes, right. And the chief editor is Professor Deng Shouxing. He's a very famous professor from States, and he actually came back to Taiwan like 20 years ago to establish the Institute of Teaching Chinese as a Second Language. And so he actually has a lot of experiences in dealing with teaching Chinese and learning Chinese. And so we decided to invite Professor Deng to come over to center to take care of the whole thing. So the idea is actually the one of very interesting ideas. He emphasized very much on the part of speech in Chinese, because Chinese sometimes
nouns and verbs,
because the form look the same, so it's very confusing for students.
Right.
But now Professor Deng actually want to emphasize more and put the part of speech for each individual word, so students can better understand how to use words, how to combine those words together if they know these rules.
The more information you have about the word, the better you can use it.
Yeah,
right.
True.
And you were giving me an example earlier. If you're marrying somebody in Chinese, you don't say 我要结婚他.
我要结婚他. Yeah, this is
we
kind
don't
of
say
transitive,
that.
Yeah, like a transitive verb. You use like a transitive verb, but it's not allowed in Chinese. You
right.
say 我要娶 someone,
right?
Okay, 我要嫁给某人.
Right,
okay,
right.
But it's not 我要结婚他, 我要结婚你. It's very weird in Chinese.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you were just looking at a list of vocabulary, you would never know that.
Yeah.
You would never even guess that.
Yeah.
And so these changes that you're making, are you kind of updating along with the way that people think about language teaching? I mean, the way that language is taught, people think about this, people research this, it's being changed all the time. Is that influencing the decisions you're making?
Yes. Yeah, as I just briefly mentioned, that we're talking about a two key concepts. One is communication, the other is task-based learning. And these actually echo with the mainstream teaching methods in States or in different other countries. They have been emphasizing very much on communication and the use of language. In the past, we emphasize very much, treat the language like a knowledge. We are acquiring the language knowledge. So to communicate with people. But now we want to emphasize you use the language directly in different situations, so you know how to communicate better with real speakers. Okay, so this very different concept. You treat language as a knowledge, or treat language a real thing, a tool for communication. So it's a very different concept, and we want to adopt definitely newer concept in compiling this new textbook.
What would you say was the biggest complaint that you got about the old textbook?
Yeah, the old topics. For example, now we don't have 电报, right? We don't have this old stuff these days. And people say, how about mobile phone? How about U-bike? How about convenience store? How about the life the people we really talk about, the topics more like updated topic.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is no things change, right? We shouldn't complain because 20 years ago we don't have things like that. But these days we have mobile phone, we have app, we have all kinds of new technology and immersed in our life. Okay, so we have to kind of update the textbook a bit for the content part. And definitely we'll also infuse more like a more modern teaching method or teaching materials into this textbook.
Now, I think that there's probably one particular question on the mind of a lot of people that is familiar with these textbooks, have gone to the Mandarin Training Center. Full disclaimer, I am a former alumni. I went there for about 6 months when I first came to Taiwan. And there's a particular character that was the protagonist for, I think, volumes 1 through 3. Maybe, no, all the way up to 4. Goes by the name of Gao Wei Li.
我是 William， 我的中文名字是高伟丽。
And so is he making it through to the new books?
Yeah, he disappeared.
Gao Wei Li disappeared.
Yeah, this is a sad story for all of us. I know many people, many alumni from MTC actually going to miss Gao Wei Li a lot. Yeah, he's the main character in audio video Chinese. Yeah, but definitely we want to create some other characters in the new series. You're going to meet them very soon if you read through the whole series. We have a new set of characters in this new book.
All right. We'll have to make do without him.
Yeah.
Now, I want to, for a moment, I want to talk about another one of the changes that you told me about, which is the fact that the Mandarin that is going to be in these textbooks more closely reflects the Mandarin spoken in Taiwan than the old textbooks did. So before, if you listen to these old lessons, what you're hearing is much more a Mandarin that one might hear in Beijing, and very much less, not so much what you would hear in Taiwan.
嗨，你们好。
你会说中文啊？
我学过一点儿，我是中文系2年级的学生。我是新生，我叫林建国。你呢？
They 准时, they roll their tongues, they put in more R. It's some people would consider it a more proper Mandarin in some ways, but it's not really what you hear in Taiwan. So I'm wondering if you can talk about that change a little bit.
True. Yeah, talking about this is interesting because in the past probably we emphasized very much on the the so-called correctness of pronunciation. But now you have to pay attention to the change. For example, if you listen closely to the programs from Beijing and the program from Taipei, you're going to listen to very kind of pronunciation in the Chinese. And we don't want to emphasize too much on the standard Peking Mandarin. Okay, we want them to learn the Taiwanese Mandarin. Okay, so that's a huge difference between the two concepts. We want to emphasize the real situation you're going to encounter in Taiwan. And of course, we want to make that the student will be able to produce intelligible, right? This is comprehensible Chinese, even to mainlanders. Okay, but we want to keep a certain kind of Taiwanese accent. That would be perfect okay for us. We don't want to emphasize too much on the so-called Beijing Mandarin. So in this textbook, okay, as you just mentioned, for example, the retroflex, okay, the 卷舌音 in Taiwanese, we don't use that a lot, right? And in Beijing Mandarin, this is like required,
right?
Okay, but we don't want to emphasize that.
And so is the idea here is what is motivating you here is you want to prepare students to communicate in Taiwan? Is that the main idea?
Not necessarily only in Taiwan. We want to get them travel around globally to be able to functional quite well. Okay, but here we'll emphasize again. We don't want to emphasize it's only the model. The only model is Beijing Mandarin, but we want to say Taiwanese Mandarin is perfect okay for us to communicate. And definitely, if you can see a lot of visitors come to Taiwan. They don't have problem communicate with people speak Taiwanese Mandarin, right? So there's no problem for our communication at all. Yeah, even for the simplify or the traditional character, it's very easy to convert these days, right? You use a computer, with one click of mouse, then you see traditional and simplified Chinese without too much difficulties.
So it's kind of, in a way, just broadening the when people think about studying Mandarin, it's broadening what they might think that would mean.
Yeah, we can say that. Yeah.
Okay.
More wider view. It's like a British accent. I wouldn't say that. Like you speak like a British accent or American accent. Both are okay for us. Right? Okay. But so it's very similar like this kind of concept. We want our students to respect different accents. Okay. But want them to be intelligible, right? To be communicative, to be able to function well in different Chinese-speaking societies.
So, do you think that making this change has any will have any broader implications than just teaching? Do you think that it does anything to establish the Mandarin spoken in Taiwan on the international stage in any way?
Yeah, I think so. Exactly, that's a good point. You help us to highlight it because we want to sell the book internationally. We want the book available to all different countries, not just the different centers in Taiwan. We want like internationally available to these different countries. And when they listen to this, they will quickly notice there are some differences between the Chinese textbook and also Taiwanese textbook in teaching Chinese. We want them to be aware there are some differences. That's good, right? It's the only way to raise their awareness about this different language accent, different pronunciation. But basically, it's still communicable, right? There's no major differences between the two pronunciation.
All right, so switching gears a little bit, I imagine maybe some of our listeners out there are probably scratching their head thinking, we're talking about a textbook all day. We're talking about this is just one school is updating a textbook. Why is this worth a whole interview? Well, the reason for that is the Mandarin Training Center is a very influential institution. The textbooks that you use are used to teach Chinese in many different universities all around Taiwan, including NTU, including Fuda, including in other countries as well. And so you making this change, you saying we want to get more in line with this more recent research on teaching.
Yes.
That might have a little bit of an impact on the way Mandarin is taught elsewhere in Taiwan as well.
Yes, exactly. And you mentioned about why the Mandarin Center is so influential, right? Because we have a long history.
Right.
Yeah, we are going to celebrate the 60th anniversary.
60th anniversary,
next year.
Yeah.
Okay. So we established in 1956. So it's a long way. And along the way, we have an excellent teacher to support us. We have wonderful teacher training center at university here, because we actually Taiwan Normal University is a teacher training center, the biggest teacher training university in Taiwan, and we have high quality teacher to support the center, and we have very convenient location. Okay, we're right in the city of Taipei, so it's easy to get access to this center, and also we have very excellent alumni like you. Yeah.
Well,
definitely,
and more important people too. You've had former AIT directors. You've had you've had. I wrote this.
Kevin Rudd. The big name is Kevin Rudd.
Yeah,
the former prime ministers of Australia.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the important guy. But actually, we have a lot of excellent people like Keith and as young people learning Chinese, and people see the outcome of training. Yeah, you see the people speak good Chinese from this center, and they want to recommend this center to different people, to their relatives, to their good friends, and even to some other people. Yeah, so that's why we build a good reputation in Chinese training.
Right.
And that's why you mentioned that, why we become so influential in producing textbooks, because we have very strong and solid background for doing that.
Yeah. You've established your brand very early on, and you've kind of been a fixture in Taiwan. So now that you make this change, do you expect other schools to adopt this new textbook and kind of not just the textbook, but also adopt this new mentality of teaching? Is that what you're expecting?
Yeah, this is our great hope for that. Yeah, definitely we expect that other center are going to adopt this new series very soon. And definitely if they adopt the new textbook, they are going to change their teaching method, jumping from the more traditional way into more new communicative and more functional way of teaching languages.
And when we think about, kind of updating the way that we teach these languages, well, I mentioned earlier that I'm a former English teacher, so I have a little bit of experience with how English is taught in Taiwan. And I think that some of the criticisms that have been made of your older textbook could also be made of the way that English is taught in many regards in Taiwan. There's a lot of vocab lists. There's a lot of emphasis on memorizing vocab. Very little emphasis in a lot of contexts. I can't speak for everybody or every situation and every school, but in a lot of schools, very little emphasis on learning how to use the language.
Yeah, true.
Well, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that you're part of a trend that's moving in a direction that will adopt this kind of teaching, or do you think you're going to have any influence in that regard? What are your thoughts on this?
I would say because another part of the job is as a professor in English department, so I probably comment a little bit on that. I think many English teachers in Taiwan are working so hard, right? They want to teach students well, right? And improve their English. But the whole thing is that it's like exam-driven things, okay? Because teachers have to help students to pass all those difficult exams, those written exams for getting a better school, right? Getting universities. Okay, they want to get high score. And this kind of mindset actually hold them back to emphasize more on listening and speaking, on communication, because in a written exam, it's very difficult to test this skill. Okay, and so as Keith pointed out, this is what kind of imbalanced way of teaching language. They learn language like an object, like a knowledge set. They have to pass the exam. They get the high score for this, but they never really got the opportunity to learn to use the language. Okay, for example, in Taiwan, people rarely communicate with each other in English, right?
Right.
Yeah, unless you get an interview like this one, you have to talk in English, right? But people generally switch to Chinese all the time, like Japanese people, right? So we like a similar situation in Japan. We are facing a very similar situation because we are still using a very old method in teaching language. And we didn't emphasize much on communication and the real use of language. Yeah, but it could be constrained by our environment here. For example, in Singapore and Hong Kong, this is a very different situation because they treat English like a semi-official or even official language. And they use it daily in different kind of program, in TV, everywhere.
Right.
But in Taiwan, it's only restricted to school setting here or in cram school.
Yeah.
Okay, so people get out of the classroom, they never got opportunity to use the language.
It's a more academic mindset.
Yes, exactly. So there's big constraints on this skill development. They never got the opportunity to put their knowledge into real use. So they only care scores. Okay, they get a good score in English subject, but they never got opportunity to use the language to communicate very friendly with foreigners. But I think the situation is gradually, we see some good signs. As you see this for the junior high school, they begin to test the listening comprehension. it's a big deal for us because we never ask students to pay attention to listening. They want to just answer questions, to have a multiple choice question, to fill in the blank. But we never actually, do you comprehend, do you understand the message? But now we see some positive sign. Okay, and also for the senior high, they have optional test these days. Okay, they test their English comprehension, and they have to pass a certain level. If you want to get to Department of English or Department of Foreign Language, they have to at least get a certain score for that. So that's a positive sign, as Keith just pointed out. We want to emphasize among the communicative part of language use.
So perhaps maybe you're just an early adopter of some of these new things.
Right. Especially for Chinese part. For Chinese learning part.
So my sense, based on our conversation a little bit earlier, is that part of what your goal is in updating these textbooks is to keep Taiwan competitive as a place to learn Mandarin, keep students coming to Taiwan to study, because a lot of people, are going to China, and the Chinese government is also putting in a lot of resources to attract those students. So you're up against a fair amount, is that right?
Yeah, I think the major things for this is because they have a so-called Hanban. Okay, in China, they are taking care of everything about Chinese teaching and learning. So it's more like a governmental involvement in the whole business. But in Taiwan, now though we have the so-called 8 years project. Okay, now we have smaller project also doing a similar thing like Hanban. But the problem is we don't have enough money to invest. Okay, so the huge difference is regarding, as you quickly mentioned, about the resources. Okay, they spend huge resources in doing this Chinese education and try to have more connection with other countries. But Taiwan actually so far, because we are, compared to China, it's a smaller country, and we don't have that much resources we can spend. Okay, definitely, as we just quickly talk about, we want to get a high quality education. But if you consider the number, because number also means a lot for a lot of people, because visibility means so anywhere you go, you see the Confucius Institute. So it's a difficult battle to run. But I mean, we are willing to spend our time doing this.
Well, obviously, having better teaching materials is good for students. I mean, that's obviously true. Everybody wants to learn from a good textbook. Do you think that there's any way in which having a center that's kind of at the focal point of Mandarin training in Taiwan, do you think that this in any way helps Taiwan? Is it significant for the island as a whole?
Yeah, sure. We only treat. I talk to my staff and also my colleague. We're joking around. MTC is the most international spots in Taiwan, and we have been very proud about this because there are so many students walking around in these small spaces. We have students from 70 different countries, so it's like a United Nations. Yeah, and then people talking to each other in Chinese. That's the amazing part. Is in the elevator, you can see people chatting, talking in Chinese. And it's amazing for us, especially for a Chinese native speaker. You see so many people with different outlooks, and talking fluently in Chinese. So we've been really touched and feel very proud about this. And I think we have this kind of strong sense that this is very important opportunity for us as a MTC staff. We want to attract more students to come to Taiwan to learn Chinese because we want to make it international, truly international. Because once more people come over to Taiwan, more people will know about Taiwan. And we actually are doing kind of diplomatic relationship with these people. And I think it's very, very important. It's not just the political connection, right? Political connections with these people, but with cultural exchange, language exchange. So it's very meaningful for us as people working in the center.
All right. Well, we've been speaking to Howard Chun. He is the director at the Mandarin Training Center at National Taiwan Normal University. Howard, thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, and thank you for having me.
All right, we are going to go out on a familiar tune to anyone who's used these Gao Wei Li videos to study Chinese. Brings back some good memories for me. Hope it does for some of you out there as well. Thanks for listening for Taiwan Talk. I'm Keith Manconi.